Hi guys, before we start chapter 2, let's recall what we learned in chapter 1. Okay. Some of the areas where women and men first began to grow crops such as wheat and barley about 8,000 years ago are located here, that is Suleiman and Kirthar hills. Then, about 2,500 years ago, cities developed on the banks of the Ganga and its tributaries and along the sea coast. Two of the words we often use for our country are India and Bharat. The word India comes from the Indus called Sindhu in Sanskrit. Find Iran. Okay, then we've got the Iranians and the Greeks who came through the northwest about 2500 years ago and were familiar with the Indus, called it the Hindos or the Indos, and the land to the east of the river was called India. The name Bharat was used for a group of people who lived in the northwest and who are mentioned in the Rig Veda. The earliest composition in Sanskrit dated to about 3500 years ago. Then we have got manuscripts because they were written by hand. This comes from the Latin word manu, meaning hand, and these are written on palm leaves or on the specially prepared bark of a tree known as the birch. Many of these were written in Sanskrit. The manuscripts, they were written in Sanskrit. Others were in Prakrit, that is the languages used by ordinary people, and Tamil. We can also study inscriptions. These are writings on relatively hard surfaces such as stone or metal. So there were many other things that were made and used in the past. Those who study these objects are called archaeologists. Historians, that is, scholars who study the past, often use the word source to refer to the information found from manuscripts, inscriptions, and archaeology. And we already know about this, right? BC means before Christ, AD means Anno Domini, and we use CE is same as AD. CE stands for Common Era, and we can use BC or BCE, and BCE stands for before Common Era, and we can use BC also, that is before Christ. Okay. Okay, then now let's start chapter number. So let's start chapter number 2, on the trail of the earliest people. Tushar's train journey. Tushar was going from Delhi to Chennai for his cousin's wedding. They were traveling by train and he had managed to squeeze into the window seat, his nose glued to the glass pane. As he watched trees and houses fly past, his uncle tapped his shoulder and said, "Do you know that trains were first used about 150 years ago, and that people began using buses a few decades later?" Tushar wondered, when people couldn't travel quickly from one place to another, did they spend their entire lives wherever they were born? Not quite. So we're going to learn about the people moving from one place to another. How did they move? The earliest people, why were they on the move? We know about people who lived in the subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago. So people lived in the subcontinent as early as 2 million years ago. Today we describe them as hunter gatherers. The name comes from the way in which they got their food. Generally, they hunted wild animals, caught fish and birds, gathered fruits, roots, nuts, seeds, leaves, stalks, and eggs. The immense variety of plants in a tropical land like ours meant that gathering plant produce was an extremely important means of obtaining food. None of these things was easy to do. There are several animals that run faster than us, many that are stronger. To hunt animals or catch fish and birds, people need to be alert, quick, and have lots of presence of mind. To collect plant produce, you need to find out which plants or parts of plants are edible, that is, can be eaten, as many can be poisonous. You also need to find out about the seasons when the fruits ripen. List the skills and knowledge that the children of these communities had. Do you have these skills and knowledge? That is the skill to hunt or to catch fish or to climb a tree and gather the fruits or nuts, whatever required. And also trying to know which food is edible and which one is poisonous to distinguish them. So these skills were the important for the survival of the children and also for the people who lived 2 million, I think it was 2 million, right, 2 million years ago, which we call them hunter and gatherers. There are at least 4 reasons why hunter gatherers moved from place to place. So it's saying that there are 4 reasons. So there are 4 reasons. First, so we are going to know about the first reason. So we are going to know about the first reason. If they had stayed at one place for a long time, they would have eaten up all the available plant and animal resources. Therefore, they would have had to go elsewhere in search of food. And for the second, animals move from place to place, either in search of smaller prey or in the case of deer and wild cattle in search of grass and leaves. That is why those who hunted them had to follow their movement. Then number third, plants and trees bear fruits in different seasons, so people may have moved from season to season in search of different kinds of plants. And we have the fourth one. The fourth one, that is, people, plants, and animals need water to survive. Water is found in lakes, streams, and rivers. While many rivers and lakes are perennial with water throughout the year. Perennial means throughout the year, okay. Others are seasonal. People living in their banks would have had to go in search of water during the dry seasons, that is the winter and summer. Besides, people may have traveled to meet their friends and relatives. Remember, they traveled on foot. How do you come to school? How long would it take you to walk from your home to school? How long would it take you if you took a bus or rode a bicycle? How do we know about these people? Archaeologists have found some of the things hunter-gatherers made and used. It is likely that people made and used tools of stones, wood, and bone, of which stone tools have survived best. So, among these stone tools, bone tools, and wood tools, the stone tools they survived best. So these are the stone tools. This number A, these are examples of the earliest stone tools. Number B, these were made several thousand years later. Number C, these were made later still. And number D, these were made about 10,000 years ago. Number E, these are natural pebbles. Okay, natural pebbles and the man-made, which we make it to according to our uses. So these are the differences: common pebbles with the man-made ones. Some uses of stone tools are given below. Make a list of what these tools were used for and try and decide which of these tasks could be performed using a natural pebble. Give reasons for your answer. Some of these stone tools were used to cut meat and bone. Some of these stone tools they were used to cut meat. They were used to cut meat, bones, scrap scrap bark from trees and hides, animal skin, crop fruits, and roots. Some may have been attached to handles of bone. Some may have been attached to handles of bone or wood to make spear and arrows for hunting. Other tools were used to chop wood, which was used as firewood. Wood was also used to make huts. Were used to make huts. Were used to make huts and tools. Stone tools may also have been used for the left part is digging the ground to collect edible roots, and the right one it would be for stitching clothes made out of animal skin. Choosing a place to live in. Look at map 2 below. All the places marked with red triangles are sites from which archaeologists have found evidence of hunter-gatherers. So hunter-gatherers they are found in the triangle ones. Triangle ones. In the triangle ones. So it would be this. Then the triangle ones, it would be here. These are the Paleolithic sites. Triangular, only one. Okay, and here is another one which I'm able to see. This one. Hansgi, then Kurnool Caves. Okay. So look at map 2 below. All the places marked with red triangles are sites from which archaeologists have found evidence of hunter-gatherers. Hunter-gatherers lived in many more places. Only some are shown on the map. Many sites were located near sources of water such as rivers and lakes. As stone tools were important, people tried to find places where good quality stone was easily available, places where stone was found and where people made tools are known as factory sites. Okay, so where people made tools are known as factory sites. How do we know where these factories were? Usually we find blocks of stones, tools that were made and perhaps discarded because they were not perfect, and chips of waste stone left behind at these sites. Sometimes people lived here for longer spells of time. These sites are called habitation cum factory sites. So habitation cum factory sites. Bhimbetka. This photo. Bhimbetka in present day Madhya Pradesh. So where is this Bhimbetka? Okay, it's in here. We found another triangle. Bhimbetka. And we have this Hunski. Then we have this Kurnool Caves. So Bhimbetka in present-day Madhya Pradesh. Some sites known as habitation sites are places where people lived. These include caves and rock shelters such as the one shown here. People chose these natural caves because they provided shelter from the rain, heat, and wind. Natural caves and rock shelters are found in the Vindhyas and the Deccan Plateau. These rock shelters are close to the Narmada Valley. Can you find why people choose to live here? If you had to describe the place you live in, which of the terms would you choose? Habitation, factory, habitation cum factory, any other? It would be habitation for me. Now let's see the sites. What are these sites? Sites are places where the remains of things, tools, pots, buildings, etc. were found. These were made, used, and left behind by people. These may be found on the surface of the earth, buried under the earth, or sometimes even underwater. You will learn more about different sites in later chapters. Making stone tools. Stone tools were probably made using two different techniques. Okay, they're made using two different techniques. The first one is this one, second one this. Okay, now let's see. This one and this one. Okay. How stone tools were made. One of the two techniques is shown in the illustration. Try and identify it. Okay. Number one. The first is called stone on stone. Okay. Stone is there and on stone we are going to do it. So it would be stone on stone. Here the pebble from which the tool was to be made, also called the core, was held in one hand. Another stone which was used as a hammer was held in the other hand. The second stone was used to strike off flakes from the first till the required shape was obtained. So we have got this core. This is the main stone from which we want to make the tools. So it's like this one. Here this will be the core and this will be the stone which we are going to use in order to make the carvings. So I think this is the first one. I think this is number one, that is stone on stone. Now let's see about pressure flake. Number two, pressure flake. Here the core was placed on a firm surface. The hammer stone was used on a piece of bone or stone that was placed on the core to remove flakes that could be shaped into tools. Okay, this is called pressure flaking. Now let's finding out about fire. Find the Kurnool caves on map 2. Traces of ash have been found here. These suggest that people were familiar with the use of fire. People were familiar with the use of fire. Fire could have been used for many things, as a source of light, to cook meat, and to scare away animals. So we could find fire in Kurnool. In Kurnool caves we were able to find ash. So it means fire was there, found in. People must be firing some wood, and so ash were found there in the Kurnool caves. Then a changing environment. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in the climate of the world. So there were major changes in the climate of the world about 12,000 years ago. Major changes in the climate of the world. So let's see the changing environment. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in the climate of the world, with a shift to relatively warm conditions. In many areas, this led to the development of grasslands. This in turn led to an increase in the number of deer, antelope, goat, sheep, and cattle, that is, animals that survived on grass. So, cattle, it means animals that survived on grass. Those who hunted these animals now followed them, learning about their food habits and their breeding seasons. It is likely that this helped people to start thinking about herding and rearing these animals themselves. So they learned about, or they start thinking about, herding and rearing, and fishing. Fishing also became important. This was also a time when several grain bearing grasses, including wheat, barley, and rice, grew naturally in different parts of the subcontinent. Men, women, and children probably collected these grains as food and learned where they grew and when they ripened. This may have led them to think about growing plants on their own. Now, names and dates. Archaeologists have given lengthy names for the time that we were studying. They call the earliest period the Paleolithic. They called the earliest period the Paleolithic. This comes from two Greek words, paleo meaning old and lithos meaning stone. So it would mean, literal meaning would be old stone. So it's called Paleolithic. The name points to the importance of finds of stone tools. The Paleolithic period extends from 2 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago. This long stretch of time is divided into the lower lower middle and upper Paleolithic. This long span of time covers 99% of human history. It covers 99% of human history. It's a long time, 99%. The period when we find environmental changes beginning about 12,000 years ago till about 10,000 years ago is called the Mesolithic. So from 12,000 years ago till the 10,000 years ago is called the Mesolithic or the Middle Stone. This is the Old Stone, Middle Stone, Mesolithic. Stone tools found during this period are generally tiny and are called microliths. Microliths were probably stuck onto handles. Microliths were probably stuck on the handles of bone or wood to make tools such as saws and sickles. At the same time, older varieties of tools continued to be in use. Look at the illustration on page 13. Do you notice any difference in the tools belonging to these periods? The next stage, from about 10,000 years ago, is known as the Neolithic. You will be learning about the Neolithic in chapter 3. What do you think the term Neolithic means? It seems to be new stone, right? Neo means new, lithic will mean stone, new stone. We have also mentioned the name of some places. You will find the names of many more places in later chapters. Very often we use present day names of the places where people lived in the past because we do not know what they called them. That's true. Rock, rock paintings and what they tell us. Many of the caves in which these early people lived have paintings on the walls. Some of the best examples are from Madhya Pradesh and southern Uttar Pradesh. Rock paintings. Examples will be from Madhya Pradesh and southern Uttar Pradesh. These paintings show wild animals drawn with great accuracy and skill. A painting from a rock shelter. It's really funny, but nicely drawn. Who did what? We have seen that the earliest people hunted, gathered plant produce, made stone tools, and painted on cave walls. Is there any way of finding out whether women hunted or men made stone tools, whether women painted or men gathered fruits and nuts? At present, we do not really know. However, there are at least two possibilities. It is likely that both men and women may have done many of these things together. It is also possible that some tasks were done only by women and others only by men. And again, there could have been different practices in different parts of the continent, on the subcontinent. Ostriches in India. Ostriches were found in India during the Paleolithic period. Large quantities of ostrich egg shells were found at Patna in Maharashtra. Besides, designs were engraved on some pieces, while beads were also made out of them. What do you think the beads could have been used for? Where do we find ostriches today? Ostriches, they are mostly found in Australia, I think. Ostriches are not found in Australia, but they are found in Africa, the sub-Saharan Africa. A closer look. Hansgi. Find Hansgi on map 2, page 14. A number of early Paleolithic sites were found here. At some sites, a large number of tools used for all sorts of activities were found. These were probably habitation cum factory sites. In some of the other smaller sites, there is evidence to suggest that tools were made. Some of these sites were close to springs. Most tools were made from limestone, which was Kelly available. Can you think of a term for the second type of sites? Elsewhere. Find France in your atlas. The painting below The painting below is from a cave in France. This site was discovered by four school children more than 100 years ago. The paintings like this were made between 20,000 and 10,000 years ago. Many of these were of animals such as wild horses, Oroch, and older wild form of cattle, bison, woolly rhinoceros, reindeer, and bear, painted in bright colors. These colors were made from minerals like ochre, or iron ore, and charcoal. It is possible that these paintings were done on ceremonial occasions, or perhaps they were made for special rituals performed by hunters before they went in search of prey. Can you think of any other reasons? Keywords: hunter gatherers, site, habitation, factory, Paleolithic, Mesolithic, microliths. Imagine you live in a rock shelter like the one shown on page 15 about 12,000 years ago. Your uncle is painting one of the inner walls of the cave and you want to help him. Will you mix the colors, draw the lines, fill in the colors? What are the stories he might tell you? Complete the sentences. Hunter-gatherers choose to live in caves and rock shelters because they provide shelter from heat, rain, and wind. Grasslands developed around 12,000 years ago. Early people painted on the walls of caves. In Hunsgay, tools were made of limestone. Thank you guys. Bye.